Hey, welcome to the Epic Success Live. We are talking all about how to get your brain to stop stopping. You know, the I'm stuck thing that we're always looking to do. I'm so excited to be talking about that today. So we're going to be doing another live recording of the Epic Success podcast. So if you're here with me live, jump in and let me know that you're here, that you're excited about being here live with me. And yes, I have stuff on my board today because we're going to talk about I'm stuck and how to stop stopping and what your brain is actually doing. So if you're here with me live, let me know that you're here. Let me know if you have ever struggled with wanting to do something really bad, like a goal, a vision, something that you know you've been called to do, but you find yourself procrastinating. You find yourself stopping yourself. You find yourself stopping even though you know like moving forward would actually make the dream come true. You can't put your finger on it. You just feel stuck. And so you stop. And so I would love to know if that is you. I see you, Julia. Good to see you, Luciana. Good to see you, Joe. Good to see you, Agnes. I'm looking down at my phone because my software is not working today. So we're going to be talking about that in the podcast today live with you. So if you've ever struggled with wanting to get started, wanting to get going, having all the dreams, having all the goals, having all the vision, but just not being able to start. And so you get distracted, you might find yourself in procrastination, or you just feel like you're stuck and you don't know the right first steps. So it just stalls you out. And then what ends up happening, right, is you know you want the thing. And so what do you end up doing is you end up telling yourself like, it must be me. Something's broken with me. If I could just figure this out, why can't I figure this out? What's wrong? Why does everybody else seem to start and go and do all the things? And why can't I do it? And then we ultimately say like, I'm broken, right? Like something's wrong with me. And then we get caught in that spin cycle of I'm stuck. I don't know what to do, searching for an answer, and then starting some action and then stopping dead in our tracks. And if you've experienced this roller coaster, it's so frustrating. And you might know you're on this roller coaster if you're asking yourself things like, or if you're hearing yourself things like, and I'm pointing to the board for the podcast listeners, but saying things like, I don't know what to do, or I can't until I know how, or I'm stuck, or maybe even I'm overwhelmed, or telling yourself things like, I should know what to do, but I don't. And so I don't get started. And if that is you, if that's something that you've struggled with, we're going to talk about what that is in the brain and why it is that it happens that way. And since I've already dove in, I guess I should say, this is the Epic Success Podcast, and I am your host, Dr. Shannon Irvine. And today we're just going to dive straight in and we're going to talk about how your brain is stopping you in your tracks, and you're probably blaming yourself. You're probably beating yourself up. You're probably feeling like something is wrong, and why you see all these entrepreneurs just crushing it, and you wonder, why can't I get started? I know I want this, but I can't seem to get started. And then you beat yourself up. And just so you know that you're not alone, my husband in our wedding vows literally said, I vow to take the hammer out of your hand, Shannon. Oh my. So if you can say like beating myself up, like that is what that was the cycle I was in. I would want something, I would go for it. Some things would go wrong and I would beat myself up and it would be my fault. And then that would have me playing a smaller game than I knew I was called to. So if that is something you've experienced, we're going to break down the 3 things that you must do to help your brain see that it's safe to stop stopping. And this is going to be key for those of you listening who, like, you can't put the dream out of your mind. So tell me if this is you. You go to bed thinking about this thing you want to create. You imagine what life would be like with the freedom and the impact and the income if you really went for it, if you played all out. But then when you start to think about playing all out, you almost get those butterflies or that sick to your stomach feeling, because then the thoughts come creeping in. Who do I think I am? I'm not sure that I know enough yet. I must need to study more. I haven't had a big enough transformation yet. Who's going to listen to me? Somebody's going to call me out, say that I'm not expert enough. And the thought of all that makes your brain want to protect you. So if you've ever been in that spin cycle, and I call it a spin cycle because usually what comes out of that spin cycle are a lot of the words you see behind me on the board, a lot of the words that our brain will filter into our consciousness to get us to stop. Because for your brain is telling you that safe and familiar is playing small. Your brain is telling you, yeah, I know you have that big dream, but there's an automated subconscious story that you have that's running 90% of the show that's telling you that you're not worthy enough to step into this role yet, that you have to work hard for your money. So many different stories play a role in this stopping kind of behavior that comes as a brain's protection mechanism, not to get you to where you want to go, but to keep you safe. So you know that this is in action if you can't stop thinking about the big dream, the big vision, the big goal yet. And you've probably taken all the courses. You probably have shelves and shelves of marketing courses and grow your audience courses and webinar courses and courses about courses and all the how-to steps. You're not lacking the how, right? But when you go to start taking those bigger action steps, you almost have a physical response to it. And you've probably heard me talk about this if you've been listening to the podcast for very long, about these, what we call the big three. Your brain is always trying to do three things all the time. It's trying to keep you, number one, safe and familiar and aligned for these three things: to feel like you're enough, to feel like you're loved, and to feel like you're worthy. And so that is what your brain is always about doing. It's looking for those three core human needs: to feel like we're enough, to feel like we have some worth in what we're doing, to feel loved, right? And to feel safe. And so your brain isn't looking at your goal sheet. It's not looking at the vision board. It's not doing any of that. Its job is to keep you safe and familiar, worthy and enough, and loved. And so here we go, us brazen entrepreneurs with this big old hairy audacious goal, or we call them epic audacious goals in my atmosphere here. And we say, I want to start this thing. I want to create a course and sell it. I want to create a podcast. What is the big thing for you? Tell me. I want to hear, what is the big thing for you? Because I want you to bring it up to your mind and see, like, what is the physical response you have? Even in your body, do you feel it in your stomach, in your heart? This is your brain's way to fire off neurochemicals to tell you stepping into that seems like a threat. Now, why would your brain do that? Like, why isn't it just playing nicely and aligning with the goals? Well, here's the thing. You have your brain, from a neuroscience perspective, your brain has to believe it before you will see it. What that means is we need to make the thing that you want to create in the world feel safe, familiar, that you feel worthy doing it, and you feel loved doing it. And in that process, most people don't even slow down long enough to think about that. So they try willpower. They try working harder. They try hustling. They try to overcome, right? All through sheer force, and leaving you feeling like this tug of war of not enoughness, this barrage from your brain. Your brain's doing what it was wired to do, to get you back to what's in automation. Now, what do I mean by automation? Anything that you've repeated, whether knowingly or not knowingly, enough, 67 times approximately, becomes at that point automated. It's like your subconscious is kind of standing guard, paying attention to not what you're saying to everybody else, it's paying attention to what you're saying to yourself, the story you're telling yourself. And a lot of times the story that we're telling ourselves, it's not even our story. It's our parents' story, or it's a story that we repeated so often when we were in school. And when we're young, our prefrontal cortex, that thinking part of our brain, does not have the filter to say, I don't think that's going to align with my goals. It just is in the environment. It sees it as truth. And in the repetition of that, you have received stories from your environment about money, success, failure, worth, safety, and enoughness. I can't tell you how many high-performing entrepreneurs that want to achieve big things has their who mixed up with what they do, right? They're looking to get their worth satiated, feeling that bucket with what they do. And no wonder when you go live, or you go to step on the stage or do the webinar or step into that thing, no wonder your brain wants to shut it down, because you basically are saying, what I'm worth is what I do. And now I'm going to go do something and put myself out there where I could be judged and therefore be found out not worthy. And your brain is like, if you imagine the sirens like on the boat, right? Like, wait, hang on, I've got one here. It's going like, it's going, no, like warning, don't do that, because your brain wants to keep you safe and familiar. So first, we've got to recognize that this is what's going on for us, that it's not another strategy that you need. It's not more how. You've got enough steps. And if you don't have enough steps and you're just getting started, you can get started in the step you're in. You don't need 10 different courses or 10 different things. And please understand, I buy about 40 courses a year, so I am not course shaming you. I think they are the best thing in the world to be able to reach out to an expert and shortcut my how by using their time. It's the most powerful thing in the world. Shout out to all my course creators out there. I am one, and I love being able to share my expertise. And I know course creators are positive force in the world. But here's what I wanted to say to you. If you still are going and listening and watching these courses, but you have an automation that says your worthiness is tied with what you do, or that you're not enough, then you're still not going to be able to even access the genius that are in those courses, because that is on automation. And so the first step in this process to actually start collaborating with your brain to stop the stopping, to stop becoming unstuck, or start becoming unstuck, is to recognize the stories. What is it that you're actually saying to yourself when you take that step that you know is playing big, that you know is the next thing that you need to do? You know it. You're smart. You're super smart. So you already know, like, what is that for you? What is the thing that you want to do? And you know it's the next step, but man, it makes you feel sick to your stomach. And when you start to go do it, you find a million other things to do and you stop. What is that? Well, when you know that, and I'm hoping you're bringing that to your mind right now, whatever it is, whether it's get on a stage, go live, start the course, do whatever that is, and your brain starts screaming at you, stop. And it starts telling you words like, I don't know, I'm stuck, I can't, I'm overwhelmed, I should be doing something else. I want you to get real curious about what are you really saying to yourself underneath all that. So if you know you're supposed to go live, then go live. And the only reason you're going to do that is because you're going to hear the story that is sabotaging you. Because listen, this story is on automation in your subconscious. You didn't choose it and you didn't give it permission. But most people, 97% of people in the world, will go through their entire lives never questioning the automations, never questioning the story. Your brain is neutral. It will automate what you tell it to. You've got to actually learn the process to neutralize and erase those stories that are holding you back, and to prime and build a brain prime around the story that you want to create. But the first step is to recognize the story. What is the story that you're telling yourself right when you say, I'm going to stop? Right when you tell yourself, I'm stuck? Right when you say, I don't know? What is it that you're afraid of? This is the stuff that most entrepreneurs would rather just like, no, let me just go build a funnel. Let me just go set up a new webinar and work on it for the next 2 years and never, ever launch it. Can I get a witness? Right? But when we ask ourselves, what is the story that is stopping me? What am I afraid of? And you're really honest and you maybe go lean into going on that stage or going on to live with the webinar, whatever it is, and you'll hear the words. Resistance is gold. Because in that resistance, you actually hear the words of the story. So recognizing is such a key piece and literally such a great brain hack for you is if you recognize the story, if you hear it and you actually just physically write it down on a piece of paper, here's what's going to happen. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical thinking part of your brain, the one that you want to be using to build this amazing dream, this venture, this impact that you want to create, that's the part of your brain you want to be using, not the automated subconscious that is creating these brake pedal beliefs, right? So your brain is neutral. It's not moral. It doesn't see your vision board. It just knows what's been repeated the most. So once you recognize it and you actually physically write it down on a piece of paper, your prefrontal cortex, that beautiful thinking brain of yours, is going to actually see that lie, that brake pedal belief for the very first time. And I have had clients of mine look down at the piece of paper and their adult mind is seeing this story for the first time and they read it, they see it, and they're just like, oh my gosh. And they immediately know where it came from. And here's the great news. You don't have to dive into years of your past and all the things. No, sometimes it helps just give yourself grace to know, oh, I remember that story came from my dad. And I think I've shared with you, even on last week's podcast, some of the stories that I didn't know were in my automation as I was growing my business and how I would sabotage myself just right under 200,000 in annual sales every single time until I cleared that. These are stories running on automation, running 90% of your daily decisions, and therefore your actions, and therefore your results. We know this from neuroscience now. There's a little debate on the percentage of control that section of your brain has, but we know it's between 80 and 90. Now, in my research, hands down, it's closer to 90 or maybe even more. So if I know something is running 90% of my daily decision-making, there is no more important work than to understand what it is that is on automation and actually create for yourself the automations that will get you to the place you want to be. That's the work we do within Epic Success. And that's the work that the neurocoaching certification clients get to learn how to do. But really recognizing is that first step. Now, what I'd love for you to do as a second step is what we call decide in advance, or DIA. I want you to decide in advance what you will do when you want to do the thing that you need to do. We all have got that item up in our mind, whether it's go live or whatever it is. And you're going to decide in advance what you will do, even if you feel uncomfortable. Because the reality is that you know this is where you've been stopping. So you get to show your brain, and I want you to think about it that way. I don't want you to think about it in terms of like your ability to do it or not do it. I want you to think about like, this is an experiment to show your brain what you really want. And the brain's automation system is just a repetitive system. So it's just looking for repetition. That's why you'll hear so many people say like action creates clarity or those kind of things, because what's happening in your brain is a network gets built after you take action, but you're not going to feel like taking action because the automated story is there. So I'm going to ask you to lean into the resistance, to decide in advance what you're going to do when your brain starts kicking and screaming and starts throwing all the shoulds, the I don't knows, that I can't, I'm stuck, I'm overwhelmed at you, right? And makes you want to stop. And when you feel that feeling of wanting to stop, you're going to decide in advance what you will do. So when I feel that feeling, I will hit go live without hesitation or whatever it is for you, but an action that you can take that you've already decided on. Now, here's the truth about this. It's not going to feel comfortable the first time or the second. 67 repetitions is what it takes to create an automation in your brain. And that's what we want. We want to show our brain that this thing, that doing this next level thing, that stepping into that bigger version of yourself is safe and it's familiar. We're expecting to somehow feel like it's all right and aligned and rainbows and unicorns and birds chirping before we do this. But your brain is only going to automate that future version of yourself through deciding in advance and action. So hearing and recognizing the story is a key piece. Another key piece is deciding in advance. Now, the third piece that I want to leave you with today is a key component of what we call brain priming. This is a process that I created in my neuroscience PhD, and then have since, for the last 10 years, been working with 5, 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs, helping them train their brain, automate in their brain the success that they want, and eliminate, neutralize, and erase these success-sucking stories, these brake pedal beliefs that we're talking about, these stoppers, right? So when we want to give our brain a 3D version of what success looks like so that it becomes safe. When your brain sees it as done already, then it actually supports you in showing up bigger. But if you don't do that work, if you never give your brain a 3D vision on what does it look like when this is done, it's not. Now, there's nothing wrong with vision boards. There's nothing wrong with affirmations, but that's only like a 2D. It's not a 3D. They're good. They're great things. But when you really give your brain a 3D version of what it looks like, that when it's already done, when there's nothing else that you need to do, and you practice that, you actually give fuel for the automation of what you actually want to create. Now, I hope you're thinking to yourself, Shannon, this seems too simple. It's interesting. The brain science of success, the brain science of how do I remove blocks? How do I actually create automations in the brain so that success becomes inevitable? It's actually very step by step. It's simple. Now, simple doesn't always mean easy, because most people would rather stay stuck in the how, would rather be in this conversation around I should, I don't know, I can't, I'm stuck, because it allows for that safety release valve and you to feel comfortable. But that comfort is an antithesis to what you really want to create. In fact, I'm going to be so bold as to say it is that desire to stay in comfort that is actually why you're stuck and why you're stopping. Because we've been indoctrinated in it's got to feel good, it's got to be comfortable, it's got to be rainbows and unicorns. But if you ask any 7 and 8-figure, and I'm trying not to get on my soapbox, but if you ask any of us that have done this work, we're going to tell you that 90% of the success that I've been able to create, and I know my colleagues and people I've interviewed have been able to create, it happens in the mind first. It happens in the mind first. And it's getting rid of this idea that it should be comfortable. In fact, anything you haven't done before, your brain is going to see as threat. So it's almost exciting to me now when I feel the discomfort, when I feel the resistance, because I know, oh, okay, this is somewhere I haven't been before. I should expect the resistance. I should expect my brain to have a little temper tantrum because the automation isn't there yet. But I also know that the brain is so systematic that if I just trust the process, if I follow the steps, if I decide in advance, if I really recognize what's getting in the way, and I go deep on removing it, and I actually build a 3D model for my brain to see as if it's already done, then your success does become inevitable. You do get into momentum. You do start to feel better every single time you do the thing that feels hard. And then you start gaining the currency of your neurochemicals actually working for you and your automation in your brain starting to actually work for you. And I could go on for like an hour about how powerful it is when your automation system of your brain is so on fire that it is enacting what's called our reticular activating system, or RAS for short, where you're seeing opportunities and things available to you that were there all along, but you could not see them because it didn't align with what was in automation. That subconscious system and the RAS work together. So your RAS will only show you what's aligned with what's in your automation. So if what's in your automation is I'm stuck, I'm overwhelmed, I can't, I don't know, you're going to see more and more of that. But if you give your brain that 3D image, if you lean into resistance and do it anyway, decide in advance and really recognize the story that's keeping you stuck, and just raise your hand and go all in on training your brain so that it becomes this powerhouse for you, success does really become inevitable. Is it simple? Yeah. Is it easy? Well, to me, anything that's going to govern 90% of my daily decisions, actions, and therefore results is worth 90 or 100% of my action and activity toward it, so that I can create for myself a brain, a mind that sees it already done, that the steps I take on a daily basis and you take on a daily basis are just inevitable steps toward your success, so that you can stop stopping, so that you can finally know what it feels like on the other side of these breaks that your brain wants to give you. Getting really curious, step one, right, on recognizing the story, deciding in advance that you're going to go for it anyway and build up that neurochemical, that glucose toward the thing that you want, and then creating that 3D image for your brain to actually be able to see it. Because when your brain believes it, you will see it. In my community, we talk a lot about what you automate in your brain, what you automate, you will create. It's just a matter of time. Your success becomes inevitable. So to stop stopping, I really want to encourage you to dive deep into taking the story that is stopping you and flipping it on its head to where that place that you want to create, that done vision, is so safe, so familiar to your brain, so you're so worthy of it, you feel so loved and so aligned that it's just inevitable that it will happen. And then it does. Powerful stuff. I hope you're one of the 3% that says, you know what? Let me step in and do it. All right. That's what I have for you this week on the Epic Success Podcast. Check the show notes. I know we've got a lot of cool free trainings coming up that are really set out to serve you deeply, growing your coaching business, getting your next 10 paying coaching clients, and really stepping into this next level through the neurocoaching certifications. So that's all in the show notes. Until next week, remember, you're the creator of your thoughts, and your thoughts create your reality. So go create it. All right. Have a good day. See you next week. Bye for now.